left. You can see also, by the way, how the leaves curl slightly on the edges as they are indicating the season starting to turn brown and curl. But the veins I'm mainly looking at now, they somewhat follow the organic shape of the leaves and are rather sensitively drawn so that they bring out the structure, the organic structure of the leaves. It's hard to describe this, but I think you can see what I mean. I'm leaving this on for a while, so I hope, in the hope that you can see it. Now, in the other, it's not a clear difference, but they are more flat, and they're more sort of schematic. They simply fill the space. The artist, that is, draws the main line, and then he draws the little other veins going out from this. And in this way, without really shaping the leaves, or without giving them that kind of, as I say, organic structure, he simply fills the space. Well, other things I would bring out include these tendrils that wind around the leaves, curlicues, little tiny tendrils that wind around the, well, you can see them, and then end up in kind of little spirals. I would think I would say that in the copy these are less believable as organic form, as parts of a plant, a growing plant, somehow botanically correct, than in the original. But it's not a very clear distinction, but I think that's true. Okay, here's a section again from the original, and notice the tendril that grows up from around the center and curls around. Two of them split, and anyway, they seem to be generally of fairly even width, and it's not, in other words, turned into calligraphy to the same degree. Here you can see, by the way, the quite beautiful drawing of the leaf veins and the turning of the leaves and the coloring of the leaves. Here is a detail, next please, from the copy, in which my argument would be that the leaves are more flattened, that the tendrils curl more kind of calligraphically or playfully almost. They're in a number of places here. The seals, by the way, on the copy, as I would take it to be, are the seals of the great 16th century collectors, Shang Yuanbian and others, and I think Qianlong Emperor there too. I think so. Well, I'll talk about seals in a minute. Here, another detail closer up, and you can see closer these tendrils and the leaf veins. Okay, the next. And here a detail from the real one, which is a stalk of some kind of seed-bearing stalk, the seed-bearing things up at the top, and then the leaves, narrow leaves going out from it with lines down the center. Well, I've talked all the way through how the movement of the hand of the artist drawing a form such as this, the lines such as this, lines and strokes such as this, somehow embody the nature of the thing that's being depicted. Flexibility, the stiffness and yet flexibility of the stalk. It bears the weight of the leaves and this thing at the top, the seed-bearing thing, whatever it is. And the artist does this, I won't say unconsciously, but it's part of the training of an artist to be able to convey the qualities, the physical qualities of things that are being depicted. Now, Chen Chuan is an amateur artist, so obviously, and there are going to be people who will say, but Chen Chuan wasn't the kind of artist who depicted things accurately. He wasn't doing realism. That's a bad word in China. And if you have something realistic, then maybe it isn't the real artist. I think that's a bad argument. I'll come back to that in just a bit. Next, if we can put this horizontal picture beside the original with the hanging scroll with the inscription at the top of the painting with the melons. This is another painting by Chen Chuan. This one is in the Chinese Art Treasures exhibition. The other is in my book on Yuan painting. But this is this hen scroll titled "Squirrel on a Peach Branch." Well, the You can see here, too, that I want to make the point that one way of working on authenticity questions is to compare the painting in question with what are recognized as genuine, reliable works of the artist, and see which one matches best. Notice here how nicely the leaves sort of brown and crumble at the ends, showing the season, and how the leaves turn in space. And anyway, quite a wonderful little painting. Wen Fong and I got in a big argument about Chen Chuan early in our career. I had bought for the Freer Gallery a figure painting, Yang Guifei mounting a horse. Wen Fong had bought for Princeton Art Museum a painting from Japan with a Chen Chuan seal on it. Lovely little painting, quite possibly by him. I never argued that. And anyway, we got into authenticity arguments on Chen Chuan. And at one point, Wen Fong had written a long, quite a polemical piece against me and sent it to me. And I said, wrote back saying, okay, here we go. Gloves off. Now we're going to really have the bloody, etc. Okay, here we go. And he decided not to, and he was not frightened. He's never been afraid of me any more than I'm afraid of him. But we decided not to do this after all. And we've been good friends all the way down over the years. So, okay, anyway, my point then being that I should say here that one should. I'm not denying the value of the kinds of studies of authenticity that concentrate on the calligraphy of the inscriptions, like the one of Chen Chuan and one of the paintings here, or the reliability of the seals and the tracing of the provenance of the painting, the history of the painting, and old catalogs. All these things I did it, God knows, myself, although there are lots of people who can do it better than I can. This is never one of my real strengths. I'm not denying the value of these. They are indeed necessary, and as I say, other people can use them far better than I can. But these two can be misleading. People can say the seals on this painting are right, therefore it's a real Chen Chuan. C.C. Wang always cautioned against comparing seals to determine genuine versus fake, saying this one has the real seal, says the genuine one. He saw this as a misuse of the book that he and Victoria Kontag had compiled, the seal book. I'll have a reference to that at the end of my my handout also. And they compiled it in 1940, a book of seals, and people used to use that, saying this seal matches perfectly the one in Kontag and Wang, and therefore this is a real painting. C.C. Wang, and I think he actually argued this in the reprint of his book, or I had a preface to that. I made this argument based on him. But he said this is a misuse. You can't do this. The seals don't match that well. You can't match, for instance, the seals of Shenzhou or Wen Zhangming and expect you're going to come up with the original painting. It doesn't work. Okay, anyway, enough of that. Now, here's another very interesting work. This is a painting in the Palace Museum in Beijing by the great Yuan Dynasty landscape master Huang Gongwang. A relatively early work, earlier than his most famous works, that is, a hand scroll in ink on paper, painted probably in the 1330s, not dated, but around then, and titled simply Hills Beyond a River. No, excuse me, Rivers and Hills Before Rain, I'm sorry. Hills Beyond a River is the title of my book. Rivers and Hills Before Rain, the first section of the painting by Huang Gongwang. Now, two copies. I published this maybe for the first time, at any rate. I think for the first time, at any rate, in my Yuan book. Saw it in Beijing, and together with authorities there, recognized as a major Huang Gongwang painting that was little known or unknown. Now, two copies of that turned up in later times. One of them was in the hands of a dealer in Hong Kong. The other, I'm not sure. Now, these are a very difficult case, but I want to use it anyway to show you, to put side by side the original and the copy. Now here is the first section of what I take to be the good copy. This one has seals of the Qianlong Emperor, located slightly differently than on what I take to be the original, and extremely close. You can compare branches of trees and all kinds of things. If you get down into really close comparisons, you'll find things in the original that don't come through in the copy quite right. Down here in the lower right, this bunch of dark paintings of bushes and dark leaves and so on. In the original, this it doesn't turn into simply flat pattern, and in the copy it does. And the trees grow more organically. And well, I'm saying these things which are very subjective. This isn't really objective analysis at all, and I'm not claiming that it is. The matter of ink and paper too. The slides are not good to show that. I'm not claiming they are, but if you have a trained eye, you can usually, or sometimes, look at a painting and say that looks like it's really good Yuan Dynasty paper. Sometimes collectors have claimed they can really tell the date of a painting from the paper. I don't believe that's true, but you can make a pretty good guess sometimes. That helps to confirm other kinds of purposes. My colleague and good friend and someone I admire, Robert Mowry, the Harvard Art Museum, Sackler so-called. I once spent a time with him. He's done work on dating silks, and I once spent time with him, which convinced me that he's got a very good eye for dating silk, and can say that looks like Yuan Dynasty silk, or that looks like Good Sung silk, or this, etc. At any rate, his datings based on the silk were close to the ones I would make from style, so that I was convinced anyway. I hope he'll publish something on this in time. At any rate, it can be done. Okay, then, let's see. The next, please. And then there's still another copy here, the third. This is the one with sort of a streak going down the middle, which is also has the Qianlong seals, and is much less good. This is pretty obviously no good. The trees, the groups of trees and bushes and so on the foreground are flattened. They don't grow organically. They lose the, well, if I start talking about good brushwork, then I'm in something really very subjective. But the kind of brushwork that is, Huang Gongwang is not a painter supposed to be known for, again, for naturalistic or for making the trees seem to grow and so on. Nobody says that about him in his time. They praise him for great brushwork and new innovations of style and so on. And yet, in spite of this, Huang Gongwang, in fact, gets the trees much more imbued with real sense of growth and natural tangle in the trees and bushes, and wonderful use of ink values, varying ink values to render depth, make some things go forward and some back. And even in the drawing of the texture strokes on the hills in the distance, they are not simply repeated and as kind of done as repetitively as they will be in the copies. Here's the copy, the same section in the copy, and as you see, well, these are hard things to point out. In the middle right here, you see, as I say, a lot of little dark horizontal blobs rendering bushes that turn into a somewhat flat pattern. And I don't know, if I had lots of time and a precursor and so on, I could point out point by point. But the point is that you can I think you can read the real Huang Gongwang by not only good brushwork in the sense of good in itself, but brushwork that depicts properly, that renders the forms, that makes them readable. The upper edges of the banks of fog have a somewhat scalloped, simple contour, but not so much so as the copies. The copyists will turn this into simple chunk, rounded forms. And the hills are quite wonderfully shaped and given by them. These are, of course, in the tradition of Dongyuan with the lumpy tops and so on, but as is done by this great Yuan Dynasty artist. This is the